Hello everyone, welcome back to the Kirklees Guitar School Podcast. Something a little bit different for you today. We're joined with Tristan from Ackworth Guitar Set Ups. Thank you very much for joining us today.
It's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
So, more important than anything else, how's this week been, a rock or a roll?
It's been hang on, I have to figure this out. It's been a rock, I think.
Rock's
it's been
a
a good
one.
week. Yeah. It's definitely not been a roll for once, which is humbling. Learned a lot of cool things about myself and, weirdly, my guitar playing, which is an interesting thing. Happened to practice a little bit for the first time, or have the ability to do a little bit of practicing, and it was inspired really by buying a new guitar.
Go on then, what have you bought?
Yeah, just a very humble Fender Stratocaster.
Right, okay.
It was a cheap eBay purchase, and one of those things that went missing in the post for like 2 weeks, and just like this really funny experience, really. But when I pulled it out, when it finally arrived and I was able to pull it out of the box, couldn't put it down. It was just a...
And what is it? What?
Yeah.
Like Mexican job?
Yeah, Mexican 1998 Mexican Classic Series.
Right.
Very similar to your
What?
three-colour sunburst one.
Oh, right, okay, so 3-tone sunburst.
Yeah,
Strat
just
then.
the 60s one, but just played, picked it up out of the box and just played great. Didn't have to do anything to it. And because of that, I was just busy playing it and enjoying it, and got into this funny situation where I was realizing how match fit I'm not, and was really trying to sort of play along to quite a few songs. I'd put something on Spotify, would play along to it, and began to realize that at 48, all my my abilities to do the things that I want to do are perhaps not as good as they should be.
I think you'll kind of suffer with a similar thing that I do, that you work guitar, you make your living doing guitar related things, but you probably don't spend as much time playing the guitar as you'd like to.
It's really difficult. I mean, most of the time I spend going, right, it's in tune, great. Is there any fretboard? So you'll just be going around a board looking for things, and you don't have the ability just to sit down and practice. But I made a real effort to do it, and it was amazing. Although I got home from work that day and I said to my partner, my God, I'm not fit enough to do this. And she's looking at me going, what are you on about? I went, well, my playing was slouchy. I wasn't hitting on time. All those little things that you begin to do, because I was playing quite a lot of funk music and realizing the sort of staccato nature of it. I wasn't hitting on the one. I was slightly behind. And when I went for the one, I was like, oh, I'm back in place. But I had to make this conscious effort to hit when the snare's hitting, to be in the pocket.
Yeah, doing the ice pick thing on beat 2 and 4. And I call it being down to your fighting weight. I sort of like, when I've got a big run of gigs, I will practice more on the run up to them to make sure that I am sort of, my left and my right hands are in sync with each other, and it's all kind of...
Yeah.
Because although I play a lot of guitar, I spend a lot of time playing the sort of basics. And actually, I think a good guitar teacher shouldn't necessarily spend loads of the lesson playing. I should be listening to you playing and telling you how to get better at it, in that.
I mean, if it's down to fighting weight, I need to ring Don King quickly, because I'm out. So
my week's been a rock as well, because, and you'll know about this because I got my Les Paul Custom back. So
certainly do.
What did you do to this guitar?
Well, you were having some problems with the guitar, weren't you, in terms of one of the pickups wasn't working as well as it should be. It was pretty defunct, really. So we came to an agreement that I would wind you a new PAF-related humbucker for the bridge, and made it for you, installed it for you, and hopefully, sounds great.
Well, I took it, so I picked it up on the Thursday, and then I did a gig on the Friday, and I text you after the gig on the way home. I was just like, this is awesome. This is so much. So a PAF pickup's a traditional pickup for Gibson guitars of a certain era out there.
PAF stands for Patent Applied For, and basically it's just an era of Gibson's humbuckers from when they first introduced in the mid-1950s.
Would you say it's sort of like 50 through to 50, like sort of like, what's first Les Paul was 52, wasn't it? But they were P90s, so is it 57?
It's 56, I think, technically, it was first introduced. And then, it was just a steady evolution, really, through Gibson, in terms of how they basically made the pickups to accommodate the music of the era. So as the PAF sort of evolved, It got slightly hotter towards the end of, towards the 60s, definitely.
So it's definitely been a rock. I'm really enjoying playing this, so thank you for sorting that out for me.
I went for something a little bit overwhelmed, just ever so slightly, just to give it a little bit of bite, really. Cause
what does it mean when you overwind?
Okay, so you're changing the impedance of the pickup, the resistance, sorry, not the impedance, so that basically it creates a more aggressive sort of tone. I think.
Would you say it's easier? It sort of makes your amp crunch up a little bit more. There's more.
It's driving it more.
Creates more output.
Yeah, more
right.
output,
Okay. So yeah, I'm really enjoying that. Thank you very much for sorting that. And Tristan does all sort of our setup work here at the school, looking after his instruments, keeping them in fine fettle.
Certainly have been doing for a good number of years. Yeah.
Well, we were neighbours once upon a time, weren't we? And that's how we met.
Yeah, and it was really strange sort of coming back here after I have not been in this building probably for. Well, realistically, for about 6 years, so it was quite nice just to come down.
Was it pre-COVID when you moved out?
It was literally, I think we took the lease, and then COVID came, and we were just like, okay, this is fun. Weirdly, we were fortunate that as a company, we had quite a big following on Facebook, and we made a lot of video content back in 2020, and it just happened that we were making cool stuff at the right time, really, when Facebook was becoming more of a video platform, and we just hit the algorithms really well, and things just rocketed, I guess.
Very good. Right then. So what I wanted to talk about today was what a setup is, and why should people have their guitars set up. So what is a setup in simple terms?
Okay, think of a setup as the geometry of your instrument. It's ensuring that the guitar is geometrically in the right place for the most optimal playing experience, really. What you find, and the reason people have guitars set up, is that a manufacturer like Gibson, like Epiphone, they are hamstrung, if you will, by the fact that they make a guitar in a factory somewhere in America, for example. It might be a nice, warm, sunny day, and they ship your guitar out of the factory. It then goes into, a port where it's put on a ship, probably in a cargo ship, sailed halfway around the world. It's traveled through 58,000 different time zones. It's gone through 67 changes of temperature. And when your guitar, for example, would end up likely in Holland, where Gibson have their distribution center, and it doesn't know what it's doing anymore. The guitar effectively is an instrument made out of wood. It's going to absorb humidity, water, and then in warm climates, that water is going to be sucked out of your instrument.
And what happens to the guitar then in these sort of temperature changes?
Well, the wood shrinks and expands.
Sort of on a micro level,
but a micro level that in essence can do quite significant damage to the playability of the instrument. So
what are some sort of key elements that so when you get a guitar and put it on your bench, because if you don't follow Ackworth Guitar Set Ups on Instagram, I recommend that you do so, because there's some lovely stuff gets put on your bench, and you take pictures of all sorts, don't you? So when like you put this Les Paul on this bench to set it up for me, what are you doing to it?
Okay, the first thing that we look at is the neck relief. Right. Always the first thing. There's basically a fairly obvious path to setting a guitar up relatively well, and that is to ensure that the neck relief in the first instant is optimal. Too much neck relief and the strings at the headstock end are too close to the fret, so you're likely to get buzz.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've ever played a guitar with fret buzz. It's really...
Yeah, I mean...
It's not... you can make your guitar do it. It sounds like you're not pressing the notes correctly, doesn't it?
The analogy that I was thinking about in sort of preparation for today was that it's a little bit like jacking a car up.
Right, okay. We love a car analogy here on the podcast.
So, you're having to put tension in... Sorry, for those who don't know, in most guitar necks is something called a truss rod. And truss rod effectively allows you to move the neck in relation to the body. And really what you're doing is you're changing the height of the string against the height of the fret.
Right, okay.
And if it creates a degree of, it's about being comfortable. You want your hand to feel comfortable when you're playing a chord. Nothing worse than playing a chord on a guitar where the neck is too flat and almost like you're saying that the strings are touching the fret before you've even done anything.
There's this common kind of misconception that you have your guitar set up and you have the strings as close to the fretboard as you can. I find it kills a guitar, that, and I can't play guitars like that.
Well, no. And what you find is, and this is, we're very fortunate that we worked with a number of guitar retailers over the years, and what you find is if you go into any of the guitar shops is that Gibson will deliver their stock to the shop. They'll pull it out, and instead of setting that guitar up so that you come into the shop, pick up this really well set up guitar and play it and love it and take it home, what they've actually done is they've just tweaked the truss rod to lower the action, which is entirely the wrong way of doing it, but it quickly achieves something for a guitar shop which gets that guitar out the door, I suspect.
Yeah, but I've been in some guitar shops, and we won't name names because we don't want to do that. But I've been in some guitar shops where I've played guitars of £3,000 and £4,000 guitars of a similar caliber to this one, and the strings have been rusty. They've not been set up, and I think if you're a car dealership will wash a car. Or should do before they try and sell it, shouldn't they?
And I suppose the thing that they don't do, though, a car dealership doesn't usually, do they service cars before the car's bought? I mean, some might.
If it was me, I would.
You'd want it, wouldn't you? But basically, I think the entire industry is geared up for the fact that it's very difficult to maintain the geometry of an instrument for a finite period of time, and an infinite period of time. And basically, they rely on companies like mine where we set guitars up for customers because, quite literally, I give you an example of this. I was at a show pre-COVID, 2019, at the Garage in London. It's one of the little venues down there. And I was watching a band that I've been friends with for a long time, and their guitar tech was really, really struggling with the humidity in the room, to the point where he was tuning the guitar at the side of the stage, taking it onto the stage, passing it to the singer. And the guitar was out of tune before.
Well, I don't know if I've spent a lot of time playing in old theatres with old lighting, can lighting, and I've tuned my guitar at the side of the stage, walked on the stage, and it's gone out of tune. Yeah. So you've adjusted the neck relief.
Right.
What's happening down here?
So we need to then concentrate on something known as the action. The action really is the string height at the other end of the fretboard.
So you've done down here, and now you're sort of trying to get it almost, for lack of a better term, almost level on the other side. Would you describe it as level?
Yeah, I think every guitar is a compromise, really. But yeah, you're trying to get, basically, a guitar will play better if the action is relatively low because it feels more comfortable.
Yeah.
So you as the player are going to, find it a lot easier to play. If you've got an action at the 12th fret where, you can run a bus under it, you're fighting the guitar.
Well, you see those memes on Facebook, don't you? I hope my guitar's set up really well, and it's like a mile away from the fretboard. So that covers the neck. Now, one thing I see sort of bounded around a lot when it comes to setting your guitar up is intonation. Mm-hmm. When you intonate a guitar, what does that mean?
Okay, so intonation basically is about ensuring that when you play a note at, for example, the open E or the 7th fret on the A string, it's the same note, isn't it?
It's another E down there, yeah.
Or 2nd fret, 3rd string, D string. They're all the same note, but basically you want to make sure that they all sound the same.
Right.
Because as you go up the fretboard, intonation basically is about ensuring that the distance between the nut, which is this cool little white thing here, and the 12th fret, you're making sure that the distance between the nut and the 12th fret is equal to the distance between the 12th fret and where the string is going over the bridge saddle.
Right, okay. Yeah? I've never thought about it like that, but yeah, okay.
It's actually scale length, right?
Yeah, of course, yeah, right.
And if the scale length is wrong, you are going to get noticeable differences in the pitch of the note.
So you could play a lick, like let's just say we're playing something F minor pentatonic. You could play it there on around the 1st fret.
Yeah.
And you could come up 12 frets
and it sound out of tune if it's not dialed in.
Or if you're playing a guitar at home and you've tuned your guitar and you're playing cowboy chords at the bottom of the neck and it sounds fine, and then you're coming further up the fretboard and all of a sudden something doesn't sound right, or your guitar sounds out of tune.
That's a really common thing that we see when people bring guitars in. You know, they may have bought them from a shop a few years ago, played them, thought they were all sounding great, and then suddenly they come to your school, for example, and have guitar lessons, and suddenly they're in a different place on the fretboard. And it's like, why does my guitar sound so bad?
What are some other sort of common problems that people come up against that if they're coming up against at home, they should really consider having the guitar set up?
I mean, fret buzz is the obvious one. What a lot of people don't understand is that if you change string gauge and your guitar is geometrically lined up for a certain tension, i.e. you've got 10 gauge strings on this guitar.
Yeah.
The neck is pulling in a certain way. You know, the forward bow in the neck is pulling in relation to the tension that's put through the strings. If, for example, you don't understand and you go to a guitar shop and you buy 9 gauge strings, or you go on a forum and you read that Tony Iommi likes 8 gauge strings and you think, I want to play like him, you go and buy these strings.
Well, the common thing is, thinner strings will be easier, so I'll put them on my guitar. Yeah.
The problem is the guitar is now going, well, where's the tension that I enjoyed for this amount of time?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I'm going to bend backwards. And
that being the neck is going to bend backwards, right?
The neck bends backwards and suddenly your strings are touching the fretboard.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I think as well, we spend so much time with these things on his knee. It's quite easy to just kind of get in the habit of picking it up, playing it, putting it down, picking it up, playing it, putting it down. And if it starts misbehaving, and you know, most of us have more than one guitar in this collection, and if one's not playing optimal, you'll put it in the case and play the other one. And your guitar, it's a bit sad really, your guitar almost falls into a bit of a state of disrepair. You send your car for service and MOT every year.
Well, you know who the worst person for this is?
You.
Me. I never have time to fix my own guitars.
Well, you never buy a mechanic's car, do you? That's the thing, isn't it?
Is it a busman's holiday working on your own instruments?
Yeah.
I mean, I feel weirdly guilty that I bought that Strat last week and haven't touched it. Enjoyed playing it. Set up on 9s. I hate 9s.
Do you know, I'm coming round to him, you know. I got viewers of the podcast will know I got a Japanese Jaguar recently. And that's set up on 9s, and the shop that had it had quite clearly done a good setup on it before they sent it out of the door. Yep. And I can't put it down because it's the short scale length as well. As a living room guitar, it's awesome. Whereas I've come from Les Paul set up with 10s or 11s. I have 10s on my Strat.
Yeah, I mean, Strats. I think everybody should go out and buy a set of 11 gauge strings and stick them on the guitar and see what difference it makes to their playing. Because what I found was when my former colleague decided, without my permission I made, to put 11s on my Les Paul, it changed my playing because suddenly it was like, this is incredibly difficult to play. And then a week later it's like, no, this is no longer difficult to play. Actually, this is quite fun because I'm having to think about it.
Well, by contrast, so you set up, or it was when you were at the old shop, it's probably time for setting up again. You remember that red Jazzmaster that I've got?
Nice.
So I've got that set up on 11s, and then I've got my Jaguar set up on 9s. So I've got offsets on kind of like polar opposite ends of the spectrum. But then I can use my Jazzmaster for sort of almost kind of like you get stronger by picking up stuff that's just that little bit too heavy for you, don't you? So I'm practicing on 11 gauge strings, but also if I want to do like the Nirvana kind of down-tuned stuff, I've got a guitar that's capable of doing that as well. So and that's my justification for having both, and I'm sticking to it.
I think that's the sort of obstacle I found when I eventually opened this Stratocaster was that it'd come with 9s on it, and was so used to playing Les Paul with 11s on that suddenly I went for a bend and suddenly the guitar's in the roof, and I was just like, oh God, I need to do something about this. But time's a luxury that I've invested in playing rather than tweaking.
Yeah, and I'd argue that's probably a better use of your time given where you are. What's the typical cost of a setup in the UK? Or what does it cost to have a guitar set up at Ackworth?
Okay, so I'm going to add some caveats to the answer to this.
Right.
The cost of a guitar sub varies. I mean, you see people who will set up a Facebook page and, you know, do you a setup from their shed for cheap. Or you will go to somebody who's a specialist and can expect to pay anything from 40 to 150 for a setup. It just really, really depends. I mean, we charge 65 for our standard setup. There is options.
Yeah, you have
depends
kind of
what
like,
you want, really.
It's a scale, isn't it?
Yeah, and 65 gets you geometrically in the right place. But the problem is it's not quite as simple as you would think. We get a lot of people who come through the door and they come in and they go, oh, I want my guitar setting up. And we go, you sure this is the actual issue? Because people have a symptom, but they don't necessarily understand what's causing the symptom, and they make assumptions based on perhaps something they've read. And that's fine. It's just that what you don't want to do as a repair shop is go through a bunch of work only to find at the end of it that actually it's not a setup issue. It's actually that the frets are uneven.
Right.
Because at that point, you've effectively spent the same amount of time doing work which A, was unnecessary, but B, ultimately, time is money and it's chargeable. So what we actually offer is a diagnostic service first, where you bring your guitar in and we take a blooming good look at it and then ring you up and say, well, actually, James, the issue is that you've got a high spot on fret 14 that we need to take down first before we do the setup, simply because you get to the end of a process and then you know further forward.
And then a customer has had their guitar set up by you and they go, oh, well, I went for my guitar setting up and it was 65 quid, but now it's 150 quid.
Right.
Or
and nobody wants that.
Or they didn't want to proceed with the works and then they've had the guitar set up, but there's one fret that's buzzing. That doesn't look good.
Well, no, but this is the thing, isn't it? And, you know, I think in the early days, there was this disconnect really from doing what the customer wanted versus doing what the guitar wanted.
Right,
That's a very different thing. Because I remember one customer many, many years ago who was just like, well, you know, I booked my guitar in with you at so-and-so and I asked for this. Yep. I asked for that. Yep. I asked for this. Yeah, well, we've done it all. But my guitar isn't doing what I want it to do. I'm like, it's the limitations of the instrument. And the limitations of the instrument apply to any guitar. You could have just spent £4,000 on a Fender Custom Shop Stratocaster. But if that guitar isn't right, it's not right.
And I think as well, like, there's no such thing as a dud guitar. It's guitars that you resonate with, isn't it? You know, I can pick up some... Yeah. I've picked up some guitars that have just not spoken to me at all, but then the next person that picks it up behind me, it's the best thing that they've ever played. It's such a subjective thing, isn't it?
We've had this conversation numerous times. I mean, there's been two guitars in three now. Sorry, my Fender, definitely a keeper. One of the guitars is my Gold Top Les Paul, which you've seen in the shop. But the other one, weirdly, is this rather cool Epiphone ES295, which was made in Korea in 1998. The word on the street is that Gibson stopped Epiphone making them because they were diverting sales away from the custom shop Gibson ES295.
It's kind of like got like a bit of a Scotty Moore type thing going on about it, hasn't it?
And this is the reason I bought it. I fell in love with rockabilly. And wanted something a little bit different. You know, I've got a really cool old 60s Gretsch, but they spoke to me. It's gold, and what's not to love about it, right? I mean, it's beautiful.
I bloody love a Gold Top. Who doesn't love a Gold Top?
I think you're addicted to Gold Tops.
I am. But am I right in thinking that that's got an artist connection at some point?
Oh, yes. So it was used by Kasabian, the band. And was there's a really cool video of this very guitar being used by Kasabian at some show. It's on YouTube. I'll have to dig that one out and you can have a look.
Yeah, send it to me. I'll be really interested. But as soon as I come into the shop one day, and he's like, "Here, have a look at this." Which, you know, there's going to be something tasty in the guitar case when there's "Here, come here, have a look at this." Yeah. And as soon as you open the case, it was like, "Do you fancy selling it?"
Right. The amount of people who said that as well.
Is it really?
Oh, yeah. Well, I've never seen one.
Yeah.
They're super rare. I mean,
After seeing you that day,
Yeah.
I've been looking on
at it.
eBay.
Yeah,
I can't find another one.
you don't. And this one was a bit of a punt, really. It'd been up for sale for quite a while. No, weirdly, when the vendor was selling it, they made no reference to the fact that Kasabian had owned it. But what is cool is that my friend Dave, who used to work with me, he actually was one of Kasabian's touring techs, and he came to visit last week, and he was like, "It's that the writing on the case is my former colleague's handwriting."
Yeah, so you've got that.
I was like, "Oh, okay,
Yeah.
it's mad."
It's cool. Right then, so let's just start kind of bringing it back towards setups. Would you encourage? There's a big kind of like you troll the Facebook groups of the world, and depending on which side of the fence that you sit on, it's caused many a debate within Facebook groups and forums. Should laymen mess with the truss rods on the guitars, or should they leave it up to the professionals?
Okay. The answer is a resounding: you should mess with the truss rod on your guitar.
What, so that they make a mess of it and then come and say you?
Yeah, no. I mean, I think it's pretty fair to say that through the years that I've been doing this, I've always encouraged people to learn. I'm not one of the. You find a lot of repair shops are people who are very secretive about how things are done because they don't want people to come in and learn and do things for themselves. And I've never really sort of been like that. I've been very encouraging of people to learn any craft, because the problem is we live in a society where people don't learn how to fix things anymore. And my father, bless him, he instilled upon me a sense of repairing things through necessity, I think. And because he was a very tight Yorkshireman and he didn't believe in waste, so as a kid, I think ultimately this all starts back from being very hands-on with things. So, I encourage people to always have a go at something, or, if you're not sure, ask somebody. There's a big old world out there, and
I think it's that mentality of sort of make, do, and mend as well. It's like see if you can fix it, but then you've got professionals that you can go to.
But this is it, and the number of people who have attempted a repair or they've attempted something for themselves and then they've brought it to me. I applaud the.
That doesn't get on your nerves then if somebody's had a go themselves and then gone, "I made a mess. Can you fix it?"
Well, all right.
Or is the scales to it?
There is a scale to this. One of the funniest things that ever occurred was I got a phone call one Saturday, I think it was, and customer had the phone call went like this: I've got an acoustic guitar and the bridge is lifted, which is a super common repair on acoustic guitars because of the amount of tension acoustic guitars bear at the bridge. And the only way to repair it is basically to remove the entire bridge and re-glue it. You can't just glue it back down because it needs, basically, if the glue has failed at a certain point, it's likely about to fail in the rest of it, if you know what I mean. So what you do is you remove the bridge and you glue it back down, you clamp it. And a gentleman rang me one day and goes, I've glued my bridge back down, but it's not worked. Right, yeah. What did you use to glue it? I just used super glue. Right, I mean, super glue's got a really low breaking point. It's not very strong super glue. It's great for certain things,
isn't it? Yeah.
But it's super brittle and not the thing you would use to glue a guitar bridge on. I was like, right, okay. And yeah. So I glued it up. I put the strings back in and put the bridge pins in, right? And when he brought it to me, the super glue had wicked all the way under the bridge plate.
Right.
Into the pins, yeah?
It's
super glued the pins into the guitar body
right.
with the strings and everything. I mean, it was a blooming mess.
So how did you get the pins out? Did you have to drill them out?
Yeah. I had to drill and ream it all to bits and rebuild most of that side of the bridge. It was insane. So, there is acumen and stupidity.
Very good. Right, so we'll just close on this then. If you could give any guitarist one piece of advice about maintaining their instruments so that they're in fine fettle, what would it be?
Cleaning is a good one. A lot of people don't clean their guitars. I mean, I always remember like seeing those photos of George Harrison after every gig with his towel, and it was like, yeah, cleaning's a great one. I hate seeing guitars where there's just like dead skin cells.
Yeah, disgusting.
Or you know, a gigging guitar player with sweat all over it, and all the hardware's turning green because it's you know, that's pretty bad. What a lot of electric guitar players don't understand is that you know, regular maintenance, regular using stops problems occurring. So you might have seen it where you've gone to your guitar and you've plugged it in and you've turned one of the parts and suddenly that's just surface corrosion on the inside of the pot.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, if half the time the reason is that you'll plug into your amp and you'll use the volume on your amp rather than the volume on your guitar. So your pots stay in one place.
So you're not actually exercising that. Right. Okay.
If you roll it off, all you're doing is you're removing that layer of oxidization off the pot suite.
Okay.
So, you know, turn your knobs.
Turn your knobs.
Tristan's
bit of advice for today.
So
just before we close today's episode, Ackworth Guitar Set Ups has had a really kind of interesting journey over the past probably 2 years or so.
Yeah.
Now, knowing you behind the scenes and we've put the world to rights on many occasions in the shop, haven't we? Yeah. I can't go to Ackworth Guitar Set Ups without spending 2 hours there. It's just that kind of shop, I'm afraid. What's happening at the shop and what have you got bubbling?
What's hot and what's not?
Yeah,
right. Okay. So what's hot? Sometimes you get to a point where your passion needs to overtake the mundane. And for many years, and I say this genuinely, many years, I've been very keen to get the electronics part of my brain working and very much move toward, for example, your PAF humbucker. We've been developing on and off for a couple of years a number of guitar pedals, which are, you know, blowing my mind with the level of anticipation that I personally have for it. I think you played one, didn't you, the other day when you came up to the shop. I like to learn things. The thing about me and the thing about Ackworth Guitar Set Ups is we never were able to just rest on our laurels and sit and do, you know, all we're going to offer today, James, is setups. It was never about that. It was always about trying to sort of get to mastery level, trying to improve ourselves, you know, spray painting guitars, refrain instruments, designing stuff. I think, you know, ultimately I'm very, very, you know, happy when I'm designing things. We've designed pickups that have never been seen before. Whether they ever get to market is a slightly different question. But, you know, just having a creative team who are passionate about what they're doing. You know, I've got a young lad who works with me in the shop called Tom, and Tom is the thing that inspires me to think differently. He's a young guy who is passionate about the things that are prevalent in youth culture in 2026, whereas I'm, you know, stuck in 1956. And, you know, just as an aside, I had a really funny thought driving around here. I was like, well, wouldn't it be funny if Leo Fender did a podcast? Yeah, that'd be really funny.
What would that look like?
What would that have been like?
So in lieu of all this, so you're looking at kind of designing pedals and making pickups and doing all that kind of stuff, which is really exciting. And like I said to you off camera, I'm really enjoying this pickup. You should definitely make more of them. A definite upgrade to most kind of.
Well, what's interesting about that is a lot of people don't realise that a guitar is built to a price point, right?
Yeah.
And Gibson will have your Les Paul costed to whatever it is, and Epiphone will have this guitar costed to a price point. Because the accountants really run the roost.
Well, they're not, you know, business is business.
Business is business, right? So they're always going to do things to a certain price point. And, you know, I think that's where the boutique builders really come into their own, really, because you can pretty much have whatever you want if you're willing to take that punt on a person. And, you know, I remember my interest in electronics really stemmed from many years ago. I studied amplifier building,
right?
Guitar amplifier building, with a chap called Barry Weiss, who was even at the time was probably an octogenarian, and you know, old school valve engineer guy who had worked at Marconi. And I went down to his house in Middlesex, and he taught me how basically valve amplifiers worked. And you know, it's really hard to retain a lot of that information, but it was enough for me to go, right, well, okay, I'm going to build this this amplifier. And you know, most people would go, well, I just want to build something really simple. I'm scared of it. No,
not Tristan.
No. I want to build the most complex Fender circuit possible. You know, twin channel, all of it. And he was like, right, I can do it. Yeah. And I did it. It was great. And I love that amplifier, even to this day, albeit it's in a few bits in a minute. But I think what I'm trying to get at is in the spirit of Leo Fender, for example, it's about never stopping learning or being passionate about things. And, you know, I think we've still got a bit of travel to do in terms of guitar electronics. And I get excited by things that I don't know. Really into, you know, digital effects pedals.
Yeah, which we've had conversations behind the scenes about that stuff, haven't
Super.
we? But sort of in light
world.
of that, you know, anybody that studies with us here directly at the school know that Ackworth's sometimes is it's quite difficult sometimes to with like the whole issue that you were having with getting guitars on your bench and then realising that there was a whole other set of issues which sort of made delays. You've sort of implemented some new things to try and sort of keep on top of all that, haven't you?
Just the process. You know, the guitar diagnostic assessment is a big part of that, really, because what it stops is time being wasted.
Yeah.
You know, nothing worse than being a customer and you having a guitar in a shop for months. And, you know, I put my hand on my heart and I'm openly honest about it. You know, it's not always as straightforward as you would think. Mm-hmm. And then the problem is you've spent whatever amount of time getting this guitar to a point where you've suddenly found out it needs a fret level, and suddenly that's a wasted hour or whatever. And if you do that 10 times a week or 30 times a week,
and that's how you develop these insane backlogs that you did have. You know, on top of let's move shop. Yeah, and loads of other things that sort of happened. You know, throw Kiddie in there as well. Just it's mad, isn't it?
I mean, it was a funny period. We'd moved shop, had a family illness and subsequent bereavement, and my daughter was born at the same time.
Yeah,
you know, and being a new father and being a grieving son at the same time was you know, it's not easy, is it?
Rough. Yeah.
But that's why I think you've got to really sort of double down on the cool stuff and the positives, taking a bit of time for yourself as well, and taking the time to do the things that you enjoy. I mean, I'm really into the pedals at the minute. The pickup stuff's great, love it, and really want to do a lot more of that. But, you know, I think ultimately guitar setup, guitar repair work will always be my passion. It's just learning to do it in a slightly different way in 2026.
Well, and by doing that, you sort of conversations about behind the scenes. Is it 15 guitars a week that you're taking now?
Yeah, pretty much. Just really trying to limit it, simply because what happens is you just end up with a backlog that nobody wants. And like you say, if you're not very, very strict about how you process instruments, you end up, you know, I'm not gonna lie, we've still got outstanding instruments from prior to 2026, but it's just a case of trying to get through those guitars because they were part of a backlog an issue that I had no control over.
But also, I mean, every time I come to see you, the pile gets smaller. You'll get there, matey. So, thank you very much for joining us on the podcast today. It's been fascinating learning a little bit more about guitar setups and the kind of what you do with guitars. Where can people go to find out more about you, or even potentially get the guitar set up?
Okay, so social media. Facebook is Ackworth Guitar Set Ups with an S on the end. I think we've got Instagram, which I think is Ackworth Guitars. But if you want to come and see us in person, our workshop is Unit 1C at Demberdale Business Park, Demberdale, near Huddersfield, very close to where James's guitar school is.
Thank you very much for watching, guys. We'll see you next week. And thank you for joining us today, Tristan.
It's been a blast.